following program is intended for mature audiences.
A swing and a pop-up. First base side foul, ground playable. Santana makes the catch. Ball game. The Indians have won the American League pennant.
The problem is you talk, but you don't get anything done, Hillary. You don't.
When I was in the Situation Room monitoring the raid that brought Osama bin Laden to justice, he was hosting the Celebrity Apprentice.
One of the prides of this country is the peaceful transition of power. Are you saying you're not prepared now to commit to that principle?
What I'm saying is that I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
What do you say we have a rock and roll party? All right.
You're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
Follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.
And download every episode and more at basicallyasportshow.com.
Now here's your hosts, Zach,
Greg, Mike.
And you're listening to Basically a Sports Show.
You know what I want to do? I notice that every other show that we have on the network does this, except this one. We never introduce the show anymore. We just start talking. Basically a football show, Zach comes on and he goes, basically a football show, blah, blah, blah. Geek show, you introduce it as a geek show. The political show we introduce, and this one we never do. So I would just like to say, welcome to Basically a Sports Show, episode number 338.
Woo!
It's just Mike and I tonight. Zach is on assignment covering football, and I just thought it would be nice to bring back that little tradition that we used to do, and we just stopped somewhere along the way, and I have no idea why. So, NFL ratings are down. What are we in now? Week 7, I guess we're going into, and
this is the first day of Week 7, which is probably part of the problem that Week 7 starts on a Thursday.
Zach and I were talking about this on the football show a couple weeks back. You don't even get a week in between games anymore. Like, you've got the Monday nighter, then you get Tuesday, Wednesday, and we're right back into it again. So there's really, it never stops, and I think you need that stop. When it first came up, when they said the ratings was down after the first week, I said, let's not get carried away with this. Let's see where we're at in Week 8. Well, here we are in Week 7, and they're still down. So there's clearly something going on here.
There's two major problems, but they both kind of relate to the same phenomenon. And I think that is that the NFL was at its peak when, in every sense of the word, it was an event league. Over the course of the season, during football season, that meant that, you waited until Sunday. Sunday was when football started, and it was Sunday and then Monday night. And waiting for Sunday and Monday all week, that was the event. That was the big deal. And now you've got games on Thursday, and like you said, there's not even a week's worth of time between the last game of one week and the first game of the next week. You go straight from Monday, then you got Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you're back at it Thursday. It's nonstop.
Yeah, it's nonstop, which I don't care how good anything is. Too much of it, you just get tired of it.
Oh, yeah, WWE's facing that same problem right now because they did a brand split where in WWE, Raw and SmackDown are their own separate brands now. Their own set of champions and whatnot. And because of that, with the exception of the Big Four, each brand now has their own pay-per-view a month. So now there's 2 pay-per-views a month instead of 1, which means you only go 2 weeks between pay-per-views, and that's a bit too much. Like, there's too much wrestling, and now it's too much football. You need to give people a reason to look forward to football. And the NFL was at their absolute peak when people had a reason to look forward to them.
I remember when they made the Thursday night things a permanent deal a few years back, and we talked about it on this very show, that this was a bad idea. The thing that gets me is that Roger Goodell's basically saying, well, there's nothing wrong. Well, there's something wrong because, you are the biggest thing in the United States in sports, and your ratings are dropping. Is this a course correction, or is this an actual trend is what I'm interested to see?
Well, it all depends on how they respond, because the NFL no longer seems like this really special thing. I remember Super Bowl would end, and then you'd have like the Pro Bowl, and then silence. You'd get nothing football related, and the draft would pop up, and then silence again. And then even the coming of the preseason, even though it was pointless, it didn't matter, was exciting because it's like, oh, football's back. That excitement is gone. I don't get excited for football season like I used to. I think a big part of that is the fact that it's just oversaturated. You never have a chance to miss the NFL. And the NFL, I think, is something that thrived and got so popular because it was missed.
Thinking back, and I'm going to go way back to like the 80s here, every Sunday it was a big, big deal because that was it. That's all we had. Monday Night Football back then was a huge deal. I mean, just a huge deal. Now, it's just another game during the week. It's oversaturated. The quality of play, I think, has suffered a little bit over the years. You add in the concussion thing and the things like Deflategate, where it just went on and on and on and on and on. And I don't know if we're looking at the beginning of the end or anything like that, but what I'm hoping is that the NFL sees this and says, hey, you know what? We might want to step off the gas a little bit here because people are just I don't even know if they're just tired of it or it's just there's so much of it now. You know, so what if you miss a game? Oh, I missed a game on Sunday, no problem. There's one on Monday. Or I missed the Monday nighter, no big deal. I'll watch on Thursday. To use a weird analogy, it used to be like a special night out for a really nice dinner, and it's turned into going to the buffet.
Yeah, as good of a product as you have, people need some time away from it to realize how much they like it.
Yeah, and maybe there was a delayed reaction to all the nonsense with Goodell and the whole Ray Rice thing and all that a couple years ago.
Well, there was the Ray Rice thing. There was the Adrian Peterson thing. I don't think any one of those instances sunk the NFL in and of itself, but it was just one thing after another that I don't think it was apparent at the time, but I think they added up and kind of took a bit of, luster off of the league over a period of time.
It's a whole lot of different little things that are adding up. Part of me is kind of glad that the ratings are down. It's kind of nice to see that people aren't going to just take whatever this league dishes out and be happy about it. I think it's a good thing, and I think it's a good thing for the NFL because I think they're still at the point where if they can recognize these warning signs, they can fix things for the better. Whether or not they do is another question in and of itself. And the last thing, the officiating in this league sucks.
Each season, it seems like the NFL rulebook gets more complicated.
It gets more complicated, and you know what? I don't know about you, but I am sick and tired of how many games and how often officiating plays such a crucial role in the outcome of one of these games. It's bad enough that they're not good at it, but they put themselves into the plot way too many times. That's another big issue. You've got to the point where, like on the boards, a guy like he's intelligent. He knows what he's talking about. When he's looking at it going, there might be a conspiracy here. When you've got a guy that's that level-headed going, there might be something here, you've got a problem, NFL. When people are looking at it and thinking...
Whether or not you actually do have a conspiracy, if level-headed people think that there might be a possibility of one, then you've got to consider the problem.
I mean, how many people have I seen on the boards, you've seen on the boards where they say, I don't think they come right out and fix the games, but I do think that certain teams get more calls than others do.
All you have to do for proof of that, look at Super Bowl 40, Jerome Bettis, his last game in his hometown, and granted, this was before the Seahawks became insufferable, but that team got screwed.
Oh, they got screwed something horrible.
Ben Roethlisberger goes down a yard prior to the end zone, a touchdown. Okay.
The officiating's bad. There's too much football.
Well, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, right? Where there was the Dez Bryant no catch against the Packers a few years, right? And then you have cases where similar catches are ruled as catches now, and you have something like you have 10-page essays being written up by sports journalists describing why one's a catch and one's not. Yeah. And the sad thing is that those 10-page essays aren't even exactly superfluous. The rule books are so complex that you actually do need that amount of space to properly explain it, and that's a problem. Catching a football is something so easy that 10-year-olds figure it out when they go out and play by themselves. Did you catch the ball or not? Well, he caught it. It's a catch. It's that simple. But the NFL has to make the simple act of catching a football into the topic of a college term paper.
Well, yeah, you need a degree in physics to figure it out, if it's a catch or not. To me, the simple solution is, look, we can't describe it, but we know it when we see it. So if you've got a questionable catch, you get all 7 officials, go to the replay thing, and if 4 of them go, that's a catch, then it's a catch. If you all agree it's not, then it's not. If you all agree it is, then it is. Fuck everything else. Just do that. And then you've got the whole thing where every single time a nice kickoff return or punt return happens, the first word out of the announcer's mouth is going to be there's a flag down or there are no flags, or you're automatically looking for one the minute anything cool happens. That's not going to work either. You don't see that as much in college football. They let the guys play. I think the NFL
that's what I found so refreshing about college football. Again, since I've moved to the U.S., I have been following my Auburn Tigers.
War Eagle, baby.
War Eagle, they screwed that nice man in LSU out of a job due to poor clock management. But I've been thoroughly enjoying it because it just seems like there's more energy to it. And I think a big part of why it seems like it's more energetic is because the refs kind of know when to get out of the way and just let the game happen.
Sometimes you got to let the game happen, and the NFL just seems hell-bent and determined to never let that happen. The officials have too much influence over everything, which is bad enough, and then they're not very good at it on top of it. The ALCS, huh? What do I say? I'm very happy. How do you feel after it?
On the season as a whole, I can't say I'm too disappointed the season as a whole because there were points during the season where the Blue Jays just did not play well, and I was even questioning whether or not they'd make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And then, they get in, they play the wild card game, they have a great ending to the wild card game, they sweep the Texas Rangers, that's always nice, but when you can sweep the Rangers, that's nice.
Well, I enjoyed that.
So, there's that. I'm just frustrated. They just couldn't hit. Before the series started, you looked at how these teams matched up, and I think you'd said, well, Toronto has the edge when it comes to power hitting. Cleveland's got better pitching. I think Cleveland just proved the exception of Game 4 where Toronto kind of was able to put it together. But aside from that, throughout the series, Cleveland just did a fantastic job shutting the Blue Jays down. And the Indians as a team just did a really good job taking advantage of the ways where they matched up positively. It sucks. I'm not happy about it. I'm really down about it. But at the same time, it almost doesn't hurt as much because the Indians, I think, over the course of those 5 games proved that they just had what it took to beat this Blue Jays team. When that's the case, it's like, well, they just got beat by a better team. And at the end of the day, you really can't feel too bad about that better team won. It's not like the Jays were screwed out of anything. It's not like there was a controversial call that really sunk them. They were just outplayed.
I saw somebody else post this on the boards today about the Jays. When the power bats are working, it's magnificent to watch. But what I think happens with them when they're not hitting, when they get to a point, if they're down a couple runs, they start trying a little too hard to hit the long ball. And that can hurt. Because I was watching, it was either Batista or Encarnacion last night, I don't remember. One of the two, it was just like, you're trying to hit a 5-run home run here. And that's just not going to work. And the Indians bullpen, Jesus. I mean, I knew that they had a pretty good bullpen, but wow. It was amazing, especially Andrew Miller, which is another thing I can't believe. The New York Yankees made 2 deadline deals that may put 2 teams into the World Series that aren't the New York Yankees. It's usually the other way around, where you trade one of your good guys to the Yankees so they can go to the World Series. And this year it's like if the Cubs and Indians, well, the Indians are already there, but if the Cubs get there too, Aroldis Chapman and Andrew Miller were both traded by the Yankees at the deadline. And it just, to me, it's just like, okay, we're really through the looking glass now because the Yankees are making deadline deals that help other teams.
I think that I don't know what to make of this Cubs team because they get shut out. They get completely shut down Game 3. And then Game 4, they come back and put 10 up on the Dodgers. So I don't know what to make of this Cubs team. Let me ask you, as an Indians fan, which team would you rather face?
People are going to hate me because they're going to think I'm rooting against the Cubs, but I'd rather play the Dodgers. Because if the Cubs, when they've got it together, forget it. You're not going to beat them.
No, well, the Cubs, I think, are by far, when they're firing on all cylinders, they are undisputedly the best team in baseball this year.
Exactly. And if we can get the Cubs that played Game 3, sure, no problem. I don't want any part of the Cubs that played Game 4. That's the thing. The Dodgers don't scare me. The Cubs scare me to death, kind of like Toronto did. I text you every night. Yeah, we're up 3, but I'm still scared to death because you just never knew. If those bats woke up, it was just lights out. That's it. Forget it.
And that's what made it frustrating because, I'm sitting, watching it, yelling, hit the damn ball.
Believe me, when you're on the other side of that team, you're looking at it going, every out, you're going, thank God, because you just knew that at any minute, and we saw it a little bit in Game 4, if those Toronto bats come to life, you just got to hope you don't get killed while you're standing out there, And that's what worries me about the Cubs. If the Cubs are firing on all cylinders, like you said, I don't want any part of them. I don't think the Indians can beat them. I don't think anybody can. They got to get their first 2, but oh my God, what a series, though. If it's Indians-Cubs in the World Series, I mean, geez, that's like something out of Back to the Future.
It's the 2 longest active droughts, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what if the Indians win? I mean, suddenly Cleveland goes from the city of no championships to 2 in 2 years. What happens? And how much pressure does that put on the Browns? It's like, hey, the Cavs and the Indians got their crap together.
Right. I was just going to say, everybody's just going to be staring at the Browns at that point, It's like, okay. It's funny, though, because I remember from the time I was a kid until they finally got good in '94, there was a long time in my life where an idea of an Indians World Series team was every bit as foreign a concept as the Browns making the Super Bowl is today, where you just thought this just can't possibly ever happen. Yeah, if the Indians win this, first off, Cleveland, you just got to shut up now. You got nothing to complain about. That's it. Mm-hmm. Party's over. How amazing would that be, though, if the Indians and the Cavs both win it in the same year? Mm-hmm. After all the nonsense from Cleveland all these years, and all of a sudden, look what happens. Cubs-Indians, that'll be interesting because, like we said last week, now it's going to be my team. We're going to be the villains. I don't know, though. I'm seeing a lot of Cubs hate out there, and I'm like, where is this coming from?
I think it's just contrarian, honestly.
Yeah, how can you hate the Cubs? I mean, I'll be the first to admit they're not one of my favorite teams out of the 35 that I have. They aren't one of them, but I don't dislike them. If the Indians have to lose the World Series, I want it to be to the Cubs. So no tabs this week, but we're going to replace it with something I think is equally entertaining, the presidential election.
Presidential election discussion!
I will start by saying I don't even know what to say at this point.
So you watched the debate last night?
I watched part of it, as much of it as I could stand, yeah.
Did you get to the point where things unraveled for Trump about Russia?
I got to see him say, I'm going to keep you in suspense.
Where he refused to state that he would accept the electoral results, yeah.
Yeah. To be completely honest, I tried to watch it, but he annoyed me so much that I couldn't take it. I had to turn the channel because it was just aggravating me so much.
He, on the other hand, I was thoroughly entertained. I was so glad I ordered a pizza for that. So the first thing where I kind of sensed things were going off the rails with him would have been
when he got nominated.
It was when he was talking about Russia, and Hillary came out and said, basically, you're going to be a puppet for Vladimir Putin if you're elected. And his response, he just said, you're the puppet.
Nice. Way to come back, Donald. Good job. I don't even know what to make of this at this point. I mean, you just hope to God he doesn't win, I guess. Mm-hmm. I wanted to, back when we were doing the political shows, I really, we would talk to Jack about it. And at that point, I thought, okay, I don't want the guy to win, but he probably isn't going to be the end of the world if he does. But now, no, it will be the end of the world if he wins. I feel like I can speak to Jack's continued support of Trump in the situation, given that we did just talk a bit about that in the Geek Show, which I recorded with him earlier. I flat out asked him about this, and he confirmed it. He did not deny it. I asked him, is a big part of the appeal of Trump that, his nomination would help burn the system down? And he just flat out said, yes. I get the sense from him, and I don't want to speak to him too much on that, but just kind of the feelings I get from him about really the United States political system as it's currently constructed just needs to be completely torn down and rebuilt for the good of everyone, and Trump is basically a giant means to burn it all down. Well, I can't argue with that. I mean, I understand. Believe me, I get the sentiment. It's as frustrating for Democrats as it is for Republicans, I think. Mm-hmm. But there is a point where it's not just burning it down now. I mean, he's such a petulant child, and he's so egotistical, and he's so I can't ever admit that I'm wrong, and so vindictive, and just so him that it scares me because, if you put him in the Oval Office, I mean, Jesus Christ, what could happen? I don't know. It's I understand where Jack's coming from. I completely get, hey, something needs to be changed here, and if this is the guy that has to do it, then that's the way it has to be. But I think we passed the point where that was a viable option a while ago. I think now this guy is just dangerous, and it scares me to death that people still are still going to vote for him. That's the way I feel about it.
A big part that absolutely kind of floored me, I guess, in the debate last night, and we've seen bits and pieces of this in the first two debates, and we saw Mike Pence do it. But what really got to me last night was when he, Hillary Clinton would say something, which was clearly true. Like he's like, oh, Donald Trump has mocked a disabled reporter, and Donald Trump would be like, wrong, I didn't do that. It's like, no, you did do that.
Yeah,
you're not even trying to spin. He's just flat out lying.
Yeah, I mean, I saw him do it. I've seen the video.
Yeah. And so one thing that I did that was hilarious last night was when he they brought up the women who have accused him of sexually harassing them. Like after the Access Hollywood story broke, those women came out and said he's done that to me. And so the moderator brings that up, and Donald Trump says, it's almost become a meme at this point. He said, like, no one has more respect for women than I do. And like the audience actually laughed. And so I thought that was pretty great. But I think that the dangerous thing, like the absolutely frightening thing, is when he refused to say he would accept the results of the election. He flat out said, I am he's like, it's like, oh, I'll keep you in suspense. Like, this isn't a fucking reality show. Like, this isn't.
One of the things that we like to hang our hat on here is that we're good at the peaceful transition of power thing. Mm-hmm. I think it's irresponsible and probably bordering on dangerous for him to be doubling down on, I'm not going to accept the results, because it only takes 4 or 5 nut jobs to really make a mess out of things. And I don't think I'm going out on a limb here by saying there might be 4 or 5 nut jobs who are following this guy that, if he loses, might decide, hey, you know what, it's time to take matters into our own hands. And then what?
Yeah, exactly. That's what's dangerous, is that whether he's attempting to, whether or not he's meaning to incite violence by doing this whole, I may not accept the results of the election, he's basically tacitly endorsing anyone, who's a supporter of his, who on election night, when they see Hillary, winning, now in their minds they can go, well, I don't have to accept this because Donald Trump said I don't have to accept this, and I'm going to go start a revolution.
Yeah, he's going around constantly saying the election is rigged, the media is in her pocket, blah, 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 and I'm not going to accept the results. It's just, like I said, it's irresponsible. I think it's a little bit dangerous, and I'd say it's a lot dangerous. Like, I mean, I'm legitimately fearful now that on election night, when I do think that Hillary's inevitably going to win this. I think she's going to win convincingly, and when that happens, I'm just going to say I don't think I'm being hyperbolic to think that someone is going to get hurt. There are going to be riots because Donald Trump is going around saying the things he's saying. I agree. I'm just trying to not get too, overly dramatic about it or anything. But I'm with you. Here's the thing. I don't know even if this matters at this point, though. If it's but God forbid it's close. Like, God forbid it's like 2000 close, or even 2004 close.
Robo Greg.
Oh. God forbid that this election is close like it was in, say, 2000 or 2004. Mm-hmm. Where you've actually got a legitimate case. Then it's going to get really ugly. I mean, if he's on the losing side of that, I should say.
I don't think it's going to be that close. I mean,
no, I don't either. But I'm just saying that if it turns out to be, then these people are going to go nuts. If he's on the losing side of a close election, even if it's a state, I'm worried. Like, let's say Ohio, because Ohio, I guess, is still pretty tight. Mm-hmm. If Ohio goes Hillary just barely, I'm here. I mean, shit. I got to be here till after the election, so I don't want. I mean, come on. It's just, mm-hmm. But I don't know what you do. I mean, you can't say, well, we're not going to let this guy run. You can't step in. I mean, you just got to kind of ride out the storm at this point. But this went from being what I think was a interesting and somewhat misguided protest campaign to something that I'm thinking is a little bit dangerous and a whole lot nutty right now. And
I would co-sign on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just I don't know that that part of his supporters are going to be able to be reasoned with if he loses. They're just not going to accept it. And if they're already, I think you got to be pretty frustrated to be in this guy's camp to begin with. And
I got to think about like Mike. Like, you want to talk about frustrated? Mike Pence said, like, 2 hours before the debate, he went on CNN and said Donald Trump will accept the results of the election, and then Donald Trump says the exact opposite. Like, I hate Mike Pence. I think Mike Pence is a terrible, terrible human being. But let's go through his mind when he sees Donald Trump say that on the debate stage.
Well, now I'm reading an article 3 hours ago. Trump says, I will totally accept election results if I win. It's just, and let's set aside all the other nonsense that's hanging off of this campaign of his. Do you want a guy that's the way he looks at things? If I win, I'm okay with the result, but if I lose, I'm going to be mad and stomp my feet. And
well, hypothetically, it's a complete hypothetical. Let's say Trump wins now, but in 2020 he loses re-election. Would he step down?
That's another good question.
Hypothetically, if he did win, would he then step down 4 years later if he lost his re-election bid?
People said that. And it's been on both sides of the aisle. They said it about George W. Bush after the 2004 election. Will he step down in 2008? And then the Republicans are like, Obama's not going to step down in 2016. He will find some blah, blah, blah. And both sides were just completely full of shit. You knew it. It was like, this is insane talk. Of course they're going to step down. This time, you know what? It's pick 'em for me. Would he step down? I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me a bit if he didn't. I'll say that. And we're just in really weird, uncharted waters here. And I know that a lot of people think, this election's the worst one ever as far as the mudslinging. That shit's been going on pretty much since the day George Washington stepped down after his second term.
That was going on. That was going on since Adams, Jefferson. Yeah.
Yeah, this is nothing new as far as that end of it goes. But I don't recall anyone ever saying, I'm not going to accept the results unless I win.
No, and I brought this up elsewhere, but in 1800, John Adams, 1800, John Adams and his Federalist Party had power. They controlled Congress. Adams, a Federalist, had the presidency. 1800 elections come around. Jefferson and the Democratic Republicans beat them. Jefferson wins the White House. Democratic Republicans win Congress. And the Federalists, who were not very squeaky clean, they did some questionable stuff with the Alien Sedition Acts, but they peacefully stepped aside. And since that happened, the United States has had a strong, vibrant tradition of accepting of the peaceful transition of power, that when you lose, you step aside for the winner.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, too. If he's this great American that he claims to be, why are you shitting all over America like this? Because essentially that's what he's doing when he says, if I win, if not, come on. You're this great patriot. You're going to make, quote unquote, make America great again. You're going around saying things like, it's rigged, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing. Well, you can't have it both ways, dude. If that's the case, then I don't know how you're going to fix it if that was the problem to begin with. But it's just, the whole thing just scares me to death, to be honest about it. It frustrates me. He aggravates me. And I was going to ask you this. I'm glad we talked about this, because 6 months ago, I would have told you Hillary Clinton was the best bet for the Democrats to win the White House. Right now, do you think Bernie Sanders would have a bigger lead over him than Hillary does?
I'm not sure, because I don't know because Hillary's got the lead that she does have over him, because she does have a lot of that undecided vote. I honestly don't know how Bernie Sanders kind of further left appeal would play with potential swing voters. So
yeah, I suppose. I
really don't know.
Because he doesn't, Sanders, obviously, he would have gotten tagged with the socialist thing, which, that's just something that under normal circumstances is the death knell. But now I just look at it and I go, there's a lot of people that are like, they're kind of holding their nose when they vote for Hillary. And I wonder if that would be such an issue. If it were not even necessarily Bernie Sanders, but any other Democrat besides her, if it would have been a little bit easier to win this thing. Like a lot of
Republicans are now saying that are now being like, we should have nominated John Kasich because polls back in the primary suggested that in a general election matchup, Kasich would have beat Hillary easily.
Yeah.
And I bring Kasich up specifically because in terms of like Trump's idea of what the presidency is, apparently Trump offered Kasich the VP role, and Kasich said that Donald Trump's son, Donald Jr., called and offered him a VP position where, as vice president, Kasich would be in charge of both domestic and foreign policy.
I remember that. So, yeah,
which is
everything.
Everything. Kasich asked, what would Trump be in charge of as president? And Donald Jr. replied, he would be in charge of making America great again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand.
I don't know, man. I just the whole
vote
thing.
For, you know who you should vote for? Vote for Joe Exotic.
Joe Exotic?
He's an independent writing candidate who owns America's largest private tiger zoo. He's a gay man who, quote, I'm broke as shit and I ain't cutting my hair or wearing a suit.
Well, he's got me right on that alone, but he got into the game a little too late for me. If you'd shown up 6 months ago, I'm right there, man. I'm helping you run your campaign, but I can't do it today.
And his his commercials are paid for by Joe Exotic Speaks for America.
Too late to the game, Joe. You should have gotten in on it earlier. We could have gotten somewhere. But yeah, the whole thing. The debate. I tried to watch it. I really did, and he just pissed me off so much. I'm sorry.
No worries.
He just pissed me off so much I couldn't take it. I had to turn it off. I just couldn't watch anymore of it because he was just aggravating me to the point where, I don't want to sit down here and yell at my television set. And that's what I was doing. It was just like, I want to punch you in your fat fucking face. That's what I want to do. I don't know, man.
So I've got so I want to ask you what you think about the third party candidates, because Gary Johnson has made a proper idiot out of himself.
I think he's an idiot. Name one foreign leader that you like, and he couldn't come up with anybody.
He couldn't come up with anybody. He didn't know what Aleppo was.
Yeah, well, he's not very bright. And then you got the other one, what's her
Jill
name?
Stein,
who's a vaxxer, basically, and
she's a vaxxer, and she believes that Wi-Fi causes cancer.
Okay, yeah, well, you know what though?
And you know what's even sadder? You know what's even sadder? She's a medical doctor.
Well, so was Ben Carson. I don't know. Part of me, too, thinks that, well, not part of me, I just believe this, that we need to find a way where you've got to be a bit of an idiot to want to run for president in this country, because you're just put under, you're put through the mill, basically. And it's
like being a football coach.
It's just like, the person who gets elected president is the one that's left standing after this ridiculous obstacle course that they have to run, and that's just not the way to do this. We shouldn't care. The things that are important and the things that can sink presidential campaigns shouldn't matter. Shit like, how many times you've been married? Are you a Christian or not? I mean, that shit shouldn't even matter. But it does, and that keeps, I think, good people away from the job, because they're like, who needs this? Who needs the aggravation? It's it's a mess. I just. You live here now, but you guys, you Canadians, you have to be sitting back laughing at this, right?
Oh, definitely. Canada doesn't know what to make of Donald Trump.
Well, join the club. Neither do we.
Because, the commercials, and this was a big thing for me, that, we had an election in Canada not too long ago, in October of 2015. So not too long ago. And you know, the commercials for the debates in that election were like, join us as Prime Minister Stephen Harper, Liberal leader Justin Trudeau, and NDP leader Thomas Mulcair meet to discuss the issues that we face as Canadians. And then I come down here, and the commercials for the debate down here are like a WWE promo where it's like, it's Hillary and Trump head
Right.
like one-on-one.
I know. It's just, all I can say is that, you know, we just got to hope to God that come November 8th, she walks away with the win, because I don't know what happens. Well, I don't know what's going to happen if she does win. I mean, we know that she'll be okay with the transition of power, but you got to worry about him. So it's going to be, I mean, you're here at a very interesting time. I will say that.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to like what happens if he doesn't accept the results of the election. Is he going to try to stage a coup?
He's very
like, is he going to try to stage a rebellion? Like, what's going on? He's
a very litigious guy. I think he'll just try to sue a bunch of people. I think that's what he'll do. He doesn't worry me. I'm not. I mean, that's what he'll do. He'll file a bunch of lawsuits because that's what he does. What worries me is what those supporters of his are going to do, and not all of them, because I think there are some reasonable people that are supporting Trump. Well, like in Jack's case, I get why he's doing it. I totally understand that. But you've got other ones out there who are firmly convinced that everything's as bad as Trump says it is, if not worse, that we've got Mexican drug addicts and rapists pouring in over the borders like we're watching a Marx Brothers movie right now. Those are the ones that scare me to death. I don't know what's going to happen. So November 9th should be a very interesting day in this country. So you're here at the right time.
Yeah.
Are we done?
I think we are, yeah.
Okay, well, you guys know the routine by now, and if you don't, then you just haven't been paying attention. Follow us on Twitter at Basically Sports. Go to the website, basicallyasportshow.com. You can subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, YouTube, and you can find us on Facebook. Pretty sure Zach will be back next week, and that's all I got for tonight. Any final thoughts, Mike?
That's about it.
All right, we'll see you next time, folks.
Later.